Chantel and Pedro, two people that started on season 4 of 90 Day Fiance. Their relationship was so freaking powerful that what happened? They even ended up having their own spin-off show that lasted more than one season as well. But today is the day that we go back in time and we see exactly where it all started to see how it all ended up being exactly how it is. But before we do that, please do begin by hitting the like button, hitting the subscribe button, and making sure you're commenting throughout. But with that being said, let's get into it.
My name is Chantel. I'm 25 years old and I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I live at home with my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother. My family is so close-knit.
Sharp points, sharp points.
There's just no privacy.
25 years old. God damn. Obviously, times have changed now. Girls are a whole lot older and a whole lot more thicker. Some of us like it, some of us whatever. Either way, though, it's crazy because you see that very first opening scene itself in particular where she talks about her family, talks about how close and tight a family is, that privacy is pretty much a myth. To be honest with you, that is something that can work out in both good or bad. If the family loves you and they like you, that can work out very good because that family will support you and they will be with it and they will have your back until the end of days. But if the family doesn't like you, well then guess what? You're always going to be public enemy number one. Sadly for Pedro, the family, well, they never necessarily always took the best of liking towards him, which of course ended up being one of the biggest strains of their relationships, which in reality would have been so different if the family wasn't so heavily involved. I mean, you can imagine that if the family wasn't involved as they were, maybe their relationship would have turned out or developed in a different way. But either way, that's how it went. But with that being said, let's carry on.
Right now I'm at a community college pursuing my bachelor's degree in nursing. I was interested in learning Spanish and I had a friend introduce me to Pedro.
Isn't it crazy when somebody has their eyes set on getting a degree, something to further their career, but at the same time they want to do a side quest, which is learning Spanish, which is fantastic, and then ends up meeting Pedro. And in this situation, this is when Chantel's priority from being a bachelor's nurse completely shifted because now she ended up being more interested in learning Spanish because she had found an attraction with Pedro, which, listen, is completely fine. But you got to imagine, let's just say that she had continued to focus more on her degree. You never know. Her life could have been so much more different. I mean, listen, I'm not saying her life with Pedro would have never happened, but let's just say she still focused on that just as much. Then her relationship with Pedro would have been so much more different because we know one of the things that he wanted from her was just her to be a bit more serious with the work. But also on top of that, he also wanted her to be a bit more serious with just the home life. But again, that's something that we'll get into further on into the video. But it's kind of crazy though, isn't it? How at the very beginning of that season, there were already Easter eggs, already spoilers of the things that were going to potentially become problematic in the future. Especially when you know what's happened now and you're looking back at how it all began. This is why we're here though, to see all these little things that happened. And these are the things that sometimes when we are involved with somebody, they all go over our head and we don't actually pay attention to these details enough. And these are the things that we should do to help us progress in our own personal lives. But with that being said, let's get cracking lacking.
I had some relationships that just were not that great because I think that Americans don't really treat me the way I want to be treated, but Pedro definitely is a breath of fresh air. I was really hoping that we could live together in the United States, and the best and fastest option was the K-1 visa.
The typical story, the typical Americans this, Americans that. Isn't it interesting how Americans just don't like Americans, but they don't really talk about it? At least when it comes to the dating life anyway. But nonetheless, though, obviously Pedro was the man that came in, stepped up, and treated exactly how she wanted to be treated. And that was like a princess, which is beautiful. It's literally the perfect love story, isn't it? Well, at least the perfect beginning to a love story, right? And obviously, as you heard, they had no choice but to pretty much get married. So therefore, he come to the States and be together. The only thing is, though, is whose idea was it? That is always going to be the key. Whose idea was it? Because here's the thing. It's easy for someone to treat you well when they have a goal of something. And that's always been the question. Was Pedro treating her well because he had the goal of eventually using her to come to the States? Or was he treating her well because he genuinely wanted to have a future with her? Well, that's exactly where a lot of people have always been divided in that. This is why, going back in time, we can now identify the things that Pedro did, that Chantel did, that can at least let us know what did we really see back then that we probably missed, that can help us understand now what Pedro's intentions were. Were they to literally use her or to actually be in love with her? As of right now, it seems as if his intentions was just to make her feel good and to make her feel loved, which I guess everyone wants in life, isn't it now? Then it also makes you wonder, why do things end up going downhill? Well, Let's continue.
Now it's time for you to concentrate on your studying to become a nurse. I really hope that you will keep focused.
My parents always had pretty high expectations, so it only makes sense that they would want me to have the best career. And
you know, for a while, people would always really talk about how Chantel took a long time to complete her master's degree, her degree in obviously being a nurse, and how some people, kind of found it being one of the issues within their relationship. But the crazy thing about it does make me wonder though, especially with this scene stuff in particular with her mother. Is it a possibility the reason why Chantel took such a long time to actually, become a nurse wasn't because necessarily she wasn't serious about it or because of anything else, but because she just didn't really want to be one? Because, really and truly, her becoming one was something that her mother pushed for her to do. Or I'm not saying her mother pushed for her to be a nurse in particular, but her mom definitely pushed for her to have a career that could obviously, pay the bills and something that can definitely give her a wealthy lifestyle. Which, listen, no parent is wrong for wanting the best for their kids in any shape or form, right? But sometimes when you end up doing something that you don't want to do just because you want to please your parents, that is something that can definitely put you in a position where you become less motivated to do that and more motivated to do other things that can distract you. Now, of course, for Chantel, she was more distracted by the fact that she would rather get to know Pedro, rather live with Pedro, and rather marry Pedro, and rather, hopefully build a family with him. Which, again, she wasn't wrong for that. But at the same time, I understand the mom's perspective. But either way, though, should we really be sitting here and still using Chantel's, journey becoming a nurse as a thing against her, as being one of the things that was an issue for their relationship? Well, I guess that's something else we will definitely discover throughout the rest of the video when more things do come up. But as of right now, to be honest with you, when you've got a family that's asking this much of you, which isn't too much, but asking you to do something that maybe you don't want to do, I can understand you delaying it and finding other things to distract you. But either way, though, we continue. But we have to understand that sometimes when we are put in a position to do things that we don't really want to do, they can definitely affect how we treat others, and they can definitely affect how we become motivated in said things. Just putting it out there, okay? And these things can definitely affect you with your relations with other people as well.
He's done with school.
I don't know, he might want to go back to the Dominican Republic.
We don't really want you to move to the Dominican Republic.
It's interesting, isn't it? Chantel's response was we may end up going to the Dominican Republic, which can tell us one or two things. Either one, they've had a conversation where that could be that has been options between the both of them, or two, that maybe that's something that she would like for herself. Either way, though, it definitely does say that they never had a conversation about them necessarily having to live in the United States. Obviously him being in the United States sounds as if it was just an option for them to do while she was still doing her degree, because she needed to finish it within the United States in particular. And then also therefore having the power and option to be able to commute from both America and the DR. And also on top of that, them getting married and them having the benefit of him being there means that, he has the ability to actually be there with her all the time, so therefore they can spend time together on a more consistent basis, you see what I'm saying, rather than the whole traveling back and forth. And also it would make things financially a whole lot more easy as well, because flying back and forth for Chantel would have just been a massive strain on her bank account, or maybe her parents. Either way though, it is kind of interesting and also a good thing to see that at the very beginning, moving to America for Pedro was never actually necessarily a priority, because if it had been, Chantel's response there would have been, no, he's coming here to live in America because that's what he wants. But she didn't say that. So, therefore, this is another thing that I guess we forgot down the line, or that we missed, that really helps us identify what were the real intentions behind Pedro's, relationship with Chantel. But hey, we continue.
Baby.
Oh my God. Hello,
So excited because finally, the day that I've been waiting for a very long time, I'm here with Pedro, and I'm super excited to take him home with me.
From a man's perspective, you can always identify when a man is really into his woman. Always identify, but his body language will tell you 1,000 words. Unless, of course, this is a man that is a professional and just knows how to make women feel great no matter what he does. Is Pedro that kind of person? Nah. 24 years of age, Pedro, I don't really think he would have that in him, to be honest with you. But if he did, then kudos to him. But point being is, just by looking at his reaction with her when he first saw her at the airport, it literally looks like this guy is literally head over heels for this chick. That's exactly how it looks. But of course, sometimes how people present themselves may not be how they really are. But for me, in this moment in time here, when you're watching it for the very first time, all you can ever sit here and say to yourself is that these two right here are definitely on the path of something real and nothing fake. But hey, let's continue.
Concerned that, you were possibly, I wanted to make sure that you weren't using her for a green card.
So far we've had her mother plant the seed of the fact that Pedro may be using her for the green card. And the mum afraid that he's going to move in and just play games all the time. But then also we've got this friend as well, which is very new to me, I ain't going to lie to you. And she's now out here talking about, I just want to make sure that he's not used for a green card. The crazy thing about it? I understand that sometimes in life when people say these things, they're generally trying to look out for you. Some people say it because maybe they're jealous of you. But you know what the maddest thing is? Despite those two reasons, that could be any one of those and maybe any others that I haven't said, one thing that people actually neglect the most? How you're making that person feel. But you see, Chantel is somebody that always has had some form of a low self-esteem. She's not somebody that I would say has had the highest of self-esteem personally, okay? She's not massively confident in herself, but she's got a little bit of it. So therefore she probably struggles a little bit with her confidence and her self-esteem. So just imagine that you've met a guy, okay, and you think that this guy is literally the best guy you've ever met. He makes you feel good, he makes you feel loved, you've not noticed any red flags yourself in particular. Yeah, things are moving fast, but he's literally ticking all the boxes that no man that you've ever been with has ever ticked before. And then you even have a certain feeling of maybe this guy is a bit too good to be true. But you still want to roll the punches because why not? You have no reason to not do that. But then all of a sudden you're hearing this from your family members, from your friends that maybe he's using you. Imagine how that's going to make you feel. That's going to make you feel like, so are you trying to say that I'm not good enough or I'm not pretty enough, I'm not beautiful enough? Are you saying that I don't look the part for a man to not want me from another country? You see what I'm saying? There is always that part of yourself in particular. Because if you really think about it and really deep it, sometimes when people do these things, they're not thinking about how they may actually be affecting that person's self-esteem. But again, I understand that some people will speak their mind because they are generally trying to look out for you. And people should do that 100%. But when the person you're saying it to has told you nothing but great things about this person, and you haven't seen anything negative about this person, then should you be saying these things? Because you got to think about it. The mum started saying these things without actually really meeting Pedro and getting to know Pedro. The friend, same thing. It'd be very different if they actually got to know Pedro over a period of time and then they started to realize that maybe there's something isn't right about this dude. But the fact that they are literally making assumptions just because he's from the DR, I mean, why else would they be making assumptions? It's crazy work. So therefore, if I was Chantel in this position, I'd probably be feeling very, very low because everyone around me thinks that I'm not good enough for a man to just want me for me. Everybody thinks that I'm good enough for a man to just want to use me. Like, that's nasty work. Because like I said before, they don't know him yet. Yeah.
It's kind of fishy that a guy who barely knows English can receive a visa to go to school here. Like, I don't see how that works.
I mean, despite River asking a genuine question, how can you get a visa without actually speaking the English language itself in particular? Well, here's the thing, you can still get a visa, even if you are not fluent in the language. And also, you can get a visa as long as you are going to demonstrate that you are going to at least, have other methods of communicating that are clear as day. Now, also at the same time, though, we know that based on the lie, Chantel says he's here to study English. So therefore, that is indication that he's there to obviously learn English. So therefore, him getting a visa is still possible, to be fair with you. But of course, I can still understand why the family would think, how does this make sense? You've only known my sister for this amount of times. You've seen her this amount of times, and you're already declaring that you have love for her. And listen, to be fair, for some people, love at first sight does exist. Some people do meet and boom, next thing you know, they're married 30, 40 years later on, kids, grandkids, the whole shebang, and they've never looked back. It is something that does happen. I mean, obviously, in today's world, I guess it could be harder than said and done, but either way, though, it is something that is still possible. So we shouldn't necessarily rule things out just because of somebody's timeline. But if anything, we should definitely recognize that person's behavior. But it's interesting, though, because in this scene itself in particular, River's trying to ask him, so how are you finding living with Chantel? Pedro is struggling to understand the question. And because he's struggling to understand the question, this is what brings River to have this thought. Something isn't adding up. And to be fair, though, River isn't wrong, though. Something definitely isn't enough because we all know that there's a lie to be said. But one of the things that Pedro did say, though, when he was asked the question about living with Chantel, he said Chantel no cooking, which is quite interesting because if we go back to the last season of The Family Chantel, what was one of the biggest issues that Pedro had with Chantel? Well, for you that do know, you will know for sure, one of those things was the fact that when it came to house skills that he would expect himself from a wife, those are some of the things that Chantel, I guess, for his standards, lacked massively. And those are some of the things that started to really push him away from her. But again, though, we have to see, obviously, how all of that plans out from now till then. Either way, though, let's get crack-a-lacking. Because if you ask me, the clues, the hints, the Easter eggs, everything was pretty much there at the very beginning. But at the same time, these things wasn't here as a reason for them to no longer be together. These things were here as things that they could have used to actually work on. Sadly, working on them is where the challenge really began.
Yo veo que otros hombres quieren bailar con ella, quieren sacarla a bailar. Yo me molesto un poco y le digo no.
Boy, I don't know any man that would be happy with this type of behavior. This type of behavior right here is definitely type of behavior that needs to be checked.
Not too happy right now with me because he thinks that I got a little too drunk last night. I don't see what the big deal is.
I mean, let's be real. When you don't see what the big deal is, that really tells us something very simple about Chantel. She's someone that just doesn't take certain things seriously. Listen, just because something isn't a big deal to you, it doesn't mean it's not a big deal to somebody else. If it's a big deal to somebody else, then you take it seriously. Because at the end of the day, it's important to respect your partner's thoughts and wishes on the matter, not to just shut them down because it's not a big deal to you. Okay? And this is something that we definitely did identify within their relationship throughout the years. There were certain times when Pedro would try and address certain things and Chantel's response wasn't exactly the way it was. But then at the same time, there were times when Chantel would address things and Pedro's response wasn't exactly the best. But at the same time, though, sometimes these things happen based on who set the pace. In this moment in time, Chantel was the one who's already set the pace that, listen, if it's not a big deal to me, then it shouldn't matter, which is not a good thing to the slightest. And this is obviously something that became a recurring thing within their relationship, which is sucks. So really and truly, if you're in your relationship and certain things are going down, you got to make sure that you're addressing them, and you got to make sure that certain things that are setting the pace for disaster are eliminated ASAP rather than letting them just brew. Now, with that being said, if you're still here, which I know you're still here, clearly means that you want to like the video, you want to hit the subscribe button. Come on now, otherwise, why are you still here? Come on now, that's just rude. You're here for free anyway, so you might as well subscribe and like the video. But with that being said, let's keep it moving.
Con otros people, todos. Why?
You're buying me all those drinks. It's perfectly fine to have fun at the club while on vacation.
You know, one of the worst things that a woman can ever do to her man is show him disrespect. And her reaction was just pure disrespect. It's funny because obviously the family itself in particular are worried about him using her, when in reality, when it comes to them two, it's him that's more worried about the person who he is about to marry. Because right now he's identified that the woman that he met in Dominican Republic is not the same woman that she is now in America. Which is kind of sad because it is a trend sometimes, isn't it? For people to behave one way in a certain country, but once they are in their own country, they start to change their ways. But listen, in the conversation stuff in particular, I wasn't happy with the fact that Chantel was trying to downplay it, but at the same time, it ended up with her just feeling like, okay, well, I'm going to have to respect what you're saying. Listen, I get it. She's 25, but at the same time, he's 24. If he's able to understand his responsibilities of alcohol and the effects of it, then so should she. But either way, though, I'm just happy that the conversation didn't end up in a, massive argument. But again, though, it was still showing that there was a lack of respect to someone's wishes when they would just speak on them just in a very cordial, polite way. Now, I will say this, though. If you would like me to do any other couples, okay, from past seasons, please do let me know in the comment section, okay? And obviously we can get that done for you for sure. Especially if you're enjoying it, but that's only if you're enjoying this right now, okay? Come on now. But let's continue.
I think that I do need my mother
Here.
to help me. I want for my family to be sitting here and be like, oh yeah, it looks great, yay, let's
Get the
do
tears,
it.
get the excitement.
And you know what? Because she comes from such a big family, keeping this a secret from the family is actually quite crazy as hell. It's diabolical behavior. Because we have to remember and understand here that her mum loves to be involved in her kids' lives, without a shadow of a doubt. That is something that she does all the time. So for the mom to find out that my daughter's been engaged this whole time and she had no idea is going to be heartbreaking. And that's something that can definitely make the mother start to think, this man must be using you, because the mother would not be in a position where she would ever believe that her own daughter would ever think of getting married without actually letting her know. Do you see what I'm saying? So even with that in perspective, what Chantel and Pedro have done here have definitely set themselves up for failure, have definitely made it even worse for themselves, because why would the mum believe that her child would ever go off and get married without her knowing, because of how close they are? But then also on top of that, you got the father's perspective as well. The father would have expected to at least get to know the man that is going to be marrying his daughter, so much that that man would actually have the decency to ask, okay, her father for permission to marry his daughter. So the fact that we're in a position where Pedro hasn't done that doesn't look good. Chantel hasn't told anybody, doesn't look good, because you got a mother and a father who would have loved to have known this is going on with the journey. But at the same time though, even though Chantel not telling the mother is going to set them off for failure because the mother would not want to believe that her daughter would do this to her, at the same time the mother has to then look at the situation and be like, but why would my daughter actually do this? What did I do as a parent to make my child believe that they could not even come to me and tell me? And the same thing would happen with the father as well. But here's the thing though, when you got parents that may not be open to understanding that, parents that may not want to take accountability, they're not even going to think about that possibility, which is always going to be what? A problem. But these are the small little details that are actually bigger than what you imagine, that have to pay attention to. Each and every time something happens in our lives, instead of looking at the small picture and being like, oh, I can't believe you didn't tell me, you should be focusing on why did you not have the confidence to tell me? Because that's where you get your solution, and that's how you resolve it. So therefore, these things don't happen again, ever.
Trying to dodge some tough questions. So, do you plan on marrying Chantel?
No understand.
Oh, okay.
Hace que no entiendo que me hago a veces el estúpido. You marry me. Yo, no understand.
I'm not gonna lie to you, but the family was right to ask Pedro the questions, because this guy, his liability is atrocious. All he kept saying is, I don't understand. Like, bro, the matter of fact is, the father used the word marriage. He knows what that means, and the family knows he knows what it means. And then also on top of that, the dad even pointed to the finger too. To be honest, if I was in Pedro's situation now, to be fair, I wouldn't put myself in this situation anyway. But let's just say I'm dumb enough to put myself in this situation. At that moment in time, I definitely wouldn't play dumb that I don't know what marriage is. I would have literally been like, oh yes, I do want to marry your daughter. I would have literally tested the waters. I would have seen what the reaction from the father would have been. And if the father's reaction would have been quite welcoming, bruh, do you know what I mean? That's telling me that maybe I can tell him now, or tell him sooner rather than later. Do you see what I'm saying? Because you got to find a way to build that confidence within yourself to say. But at the same time though, Pedro, this information regarding him marrying Chantel, it's something that he's waiting on Chantel to be the one, because it's clear that Chantel is the one that's leading that conversation about these two marrying each other. Okay, we know about whether or not it's it's clear that Chantel was the one that's leading the conversation behind the lie itself, because she's the one that's finding it so easy to do. So for Pedro now, he's like, well, if Chantel's not here to say anything, what am I supposed to do? So he's like on panic attack, like, what do I do? But either way though, I feel like for him, if I was in that position, I would have said, yes, I do want to marry your daughter. Okay, and then left it as that. Okay, if the dad said when, I would have been like, I don't know, but I know I want to marry your daughter one day because I love her. Simple answer. But saying I don't know and playing dumb, boy, that was not a good look at all. And this is why the family are suspicious of him, because he's not good at this lie thing. Because all he keeps saying is, do you not understand? But hey, we continue.
Pedro is not here on a student visa. He's actually here on a K-1 visa. And we have to get married on Thursday.
Boom! Oh man, the silent treatment is the one.
Why the secrecy?
Well, I mean, because I thought that maybe you wouldn't like my decision.
I love the fact that question was asked though. It's such an important question, isn't it? But her answer, there's nothing wrong with it. How the family reacts, well, that's where it matters the most.
Mad or upset at Pedro.
Are you mad at me?
I'm gonna let you handle that.
I'll never recommend getting married the way they're doing that. But what can you say? They decided that this is what they want to do. This is the way they want to do it.
To be honest with you, there could have been so many ways, so many more different ways that the family could have reacted. That would have been so much more worse. But to be quite frank, the reaction was quite tamed. Which was, to be fair, both a good and a bad sign. The good thing is that they didn't react based on how they were feeling. The bad thing is that now they're going to have time to really think about it, and the second reaction, if there's going to be a second reaction, is what's really going to determine how the family feels. And then also how they're going to make Chantel feel as well. And as well as Pedro. But to be fair though, I do like the fact that the father did say that I'm not even mad at Pedro. Because at the end of the day, they're trying to figure out why their daughter would make this choice without them. And that is a very good thing for them to recognize. Because any decent parent out there wouldn't put the blame on the person your child's with. They would question their child to find out why their child did not have the confidence to come and tell them. You know, what did they do wrong? And hopefully that's something that you can build on as well. Not everybody has that luxury.
Happy. We're all worried for you. You didn't give us a chance to be happy for you. You tell us too late. We barely saw him. We don't even know who you're marrying. A couple of days from now, I'm not gonna know who you are. Chantel who? We never thought you would lie like this. I thought you were better than that, Chantel.
Now, we have to get married. Just going back.
If he went back, is that a bad thing for me? I don't like Pedro.
What?
Nothing, he lied to me. I don't trust anything he says. I don't want to see him.
Little bro does not like Pedro because he feels lied to. I can understand his frustrations with Pedro, but your sister lied to you as well. You know, the dislike should be going on both fronts, not just on one. You know, personally. You know, and the biggest lie in it is your sister, because she's the one that you know. Pedro is not somebody that you know. It's crazy though, because imagine a simple lie can cause such madness, such a rift, so many problems. And that's why it's important to not lie to your family, especially when it comes to something as massive as a marriage. And not even is it just a marriage, but it's also a fact that somebody's going to be benefiting by getting a visa out of it as well. And it's crazy because you see, if River had been given the opportunity to get to know Pedro, you know, and Pedro was never put in a position to lie to him, you never know, their relationship could have been so different. Now, of course, over the years, they did develop a relationship in the end, but it took quite some time for that to even happen. Now, the saddest thing about it is that that should have never been the case. The relationship between them two should have been built from the very beginning, because you see, once the relation's already begun on resentment, that resentment's always going to be there. Always going to take one little small thing to trigger someone, and boom, bam, you're back in this war zone again. Yeah.
Daddy, think you messed up and you're still messing up right now.
I don't know what I could possibly do to show them that this is the right decision for my life. And I guess that's why at this point, nobody trusts Pedro and nobody is on his side. Nobody is pro-marriage at this point. It really makes me feel like Pedro and I are alone and we're the only ones rooting for ourselves.
I mean, it's kind of sad that she touched on the fact that this is one of the reasons why she didn't tell the family. And the reason it's sad is because she's telling the audience. She needs to be telling the family that. Because the family is the one that needs to hear this. Simple as that. And it is sad that obviously that she feels alone. But let's talk about the fact that her and Pedro feel alone. Because that means that, you see, for her to even get to a point where she didn't want to tell her parents, it would have been because she already felt alone anyway. Okay? Because in her, something inside of her said to her, listen, if I tell my parents, they may disagree with this and therefore this may not happen. And I don't feel like they're going to support me. And when people don't feel like they can be supported, people feel what? They feel alone. They don't feel like they've got a team around them. And when people feel alone, what do? They make choices on their own, and they make choices without telling a single soul, and then they'll wait for that person to find out whenever they find out. That is pretty much how it works, right? So the fact that she touches on here says it all. It says it all right here, right there. She didn't tell them because she felt alone. Sad times. But these are the things that have to be addressed with the family. So freaking crucial.
Pedro turned my sister into a liar because my sister never lied about something this big. I'm gonna not believe this will end well.
Okay, I'll do it tomorrow.
Pedro turned your sister into a liar. But why does he think that? Why does he think that? So he thinks that this is Pedro's doing. You don't have no evidence of that. The way I look at it, even though it wasn't said directly, this was Chantel's idea, and it was her idea for a reason, because she didn't trust her family to believe her. So Pedro didn't turn her into a liar. She fell for someone, and she just wants to be with that person, and she wanted it. I can imagine that she would have loved to tell her family, but something told her that I need to lie because they're not going to support me. I'm going to lose this man that I love and this man that she wants to be with. So to say that Pedro turned his sister into a liar is ludicrous. How the family have made her feel is what turned her into a liar. If she knew that the family was going to be accepting of him, she would have never lied. But she lied because she knew the family was going to be very challenging about it. So if anyone turned her into a liar in this situation, it's the family, not Pedro. But hey, Winter River is a young guy. You know, he's young. You know, of course he's going to jump to that conclusion if anything, but anyone that's mature will understand that. But then again, though, sometimes your age doesn't actually define someone's maturity. We all know people in the age of 30s, 40s, 50s who are still immature as hell.
If you have thought about having a prenuptial agreement.
My parents bringing up the prenup, that's just proof that they think I'm doing the wrong thing and they don't trust my judgment.
It doesn't pay up because of you.
This is that moment where Chantel now needs to take her own form of accountability. Because that's the truth. The family does not trust Pedro because you decided to lie to them. That's the grand scheme of it, you know. The first line of accountability would have been from the parents, you know, them understanding why their daughter made this choice. But then the second part, the fact that she made this choice to not tell them the truth, that this put Pedro in a position for him to be in the firing line. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to who they're going to blame the most, they're always going to blame the outsider more than they're going to blame their own freaking blood. Which is so sad for Pedro, because this guy was literally set up for failure from the moment that he walked into this family due to a lie that should have never happened. Chantel should have walked in with her chest held high and said, Pedro proposed to me and we're going to be getting married. That's exactly what she should have done. And if it's a mistake, then fine, that is my mistake to make. But let me just do what I want to do because my heart tells me that I want to do this. That should have really been the grand scheme of it. But instead of saying it, no, she went down the route of lying. And then to make it worse, not only did she went down the route of lying, but that she also trusted this guy to be able to lie with her. And he's a terrible liar. What a freaking calamity. But I gotta say though, this image itself, apart from her eyes being half shut, it just says it all, because as soon as he said that they don't trust him to view, her face, his face, the tension that was there said it all. But it does make you wonder how many lies or how many things has Chantel done in their relationship that has put Pedro in the fire line, that has made the family dislike this man every step of the way because of some of the things that she's done, which is something that we will cover 100%. Okay, but let's get into it.
Me hace sentir que me quieren ver en la familia por el prenup. I feel angry because family Chantel not see the good in me.
About it. Start upon us. How can we trust Pedro and you when 2 days ago you say that we get married tomorrow or the next day?
I can understand Pedro being obviously hurt that the family doesn't trust him, but at the same time, you agreed to lie with your fiance at the time. You know, Pedro still had a chance to say no, we should not lie, we should tell the truth, 100%. That's where he has to be taking account of it. That's where he has to take accountability. So the family disliking him is also down to him as well, you know. And listen, I like the way the father just said, listen, at the end of the day, I just don't trust anything because you both lied to us. And that's not cool. And you cannot expect us to just be like, okay, kumbaya. Because that's just not how life works. Especially when you're lying to your family. Or anyone in that matter.
El otro día tuve problemas con la familia de Chantal porque le decimos que ni bueno casar. Chantal no le había dicho antes sobre eso.
Este problema se lo buscaron ustedes.
Dicen que yo voy a usar a Chantal, que yo estoy aquí porque no tengo nada que hacer allá.
Has an extremely strong bond with his mother. He's a mama's boy, but I think that he shares a little too much with his family and he should keep our private business private.
You know, the more you deep every single scene that you see from Chantel in this first season, the more you understand that every single problem that began with these two began because of one person. They all began because of Chantel. You know what's so crazy? She's the one that wanted to lie, And therefore, nobody really had the opportunity to really see if Pedro was there for the green card. You know, because everything that they did was based on her behavior. That's the grand scheme of it, isn't it now? Within this season itself alone, okay? Now, here's the thing. For Chantel to sit there and say that this man is too close to his family, that to the point he tells him everything, is ludicrous, because Chantel is legit the same. She's close to her family. She tells them everything apart from things that she's afraid they're going to reject, okay? And in that situation, she then puts Pedro in the same situation. In fact, when Pedro was even telling his own mother that, listen, the situation is terrible. We have a number of problems because the family doesn't trust me because the family didn't know about us. The mom is like, well, of course, you know, because obviously these things take time. But the matter of fact is, this scene itself alone was setting up the families to go one-on-one. 1000%, because now Pedro's telling his mom about the reaction he's getting from her parents. Now, in this situation, he's not saying anything that is crazy, bad, you know what I mean? But he's definitely letting them know that things aren't as healthy as what they need to be or what they should be because of the lie that has been told by himself and Chantel. Of course, again, even though Chantel is the creator of the lie and probably the most problematic person of the season between them, it doesn't change the fact that Pedro still agreed to go along with it. He doesn't get an escape from that. Okay, he doesn't at all in any shape or form. All right, but if they had never agreed to the lie, then who knows? Maybe the family Chantel showed never existed. Maybe they would still be in a position where they are married. Maybe they would have had those kids by now. But nope, everything is nothing but a calamity.
Chantel quiere que yo firme un papel, un prenup que es un prenup, que lo que es mío cuando me case, lo que es de ella.
Porque tú tienes mucho valor, demasiado valor. Ella es afortunada.
Tu papá no.
Estúpido.
When Pedro's mom gets heated up and speaking really fast, I don't really understand. It's almost like she doesn't even care for me to understand.
Mejor que nosotros. Nosotros somos dominicanos de pura raíz.
No entiendo.
Tu papá son como estúpidos porque no ven el hombre que soy yo. Y es un buen hombre para ti.
Exactamente.
I mean, despite the mom getting a bit heated and using words like stupid, can you blame her? Can you blame her reaction? Because she values her son. She sees her son as that guy. He's a mama's boy, right? So, of course, if anyone's going to come in and say and tell them that her son is not worth their daughter or whatever it could be, of course the mom's going to get in the defense. And as we saw, when she gets heated, she definitely goes on an extreme defense. Again, calling people stupid was definitely not needed, but her feeling so passionate enough to want to stand by her son and say, hold on a minute, did these people not value you? Did they not know that, like, you are Pedro? You know what I mean? Like, because that's how, you know, she loves her son, which is fine. Nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But then this here, as you can see, was going to create some sort of clash, especially given the fact that Chantel already was showing signs of resentment. I mean, just the look in her face and the reaction. She even said that she wasn't happy with the way the mom was talking, you know, and these are the things that have to be identified. So to me personally, it looks to me as if Chantel from the very get-go was probably trying to dictate certain things when it came to Pedro. But she obviously underestimated the fact that he was always going to be this close with his family. He was always going to be very open and tell him every single thing that had been going down, which I guess she didn't want to happen. In fact, the saddest thing about it, or the maddest thing about it, is that Chantel's brother, River, said, oh, you know, I don't like Pedro's made my sister lie. But in reality, in this situation here, Chantel was sitting there hoping that Pedro would actually lie to his own mother, or at least withhold information. So this tells you us one very, very simple thing here. When it comes to lying, Chantel was the one that was dictating that at the very beginning. Well, at least when it came to her family, she was able to get away with it. But when it came to Pedro's family, Pedro was like, well, hold on a minute. We can lie to your family if you want to, but we won't lie to mine. And that tells you a whole lot about someone, doesn't it now? Ah, dear.
Telling Pedro not to sign the prenup, it's a red flag that his mom is getting so upset about it. And I think that I need to talk to him. I don't understand why your mom is so against us getting this paper. I understand that she thinks that if we're getting married for love, there's not going to be a divorce. But if there's not going to be a divorce, then we'll never have to use the paper. So
Contigo por tu dinero. Tu familia siempre quiere eso.
no por dinero. Ellos, okay, exactamente. Ellos no creen. Ellos creen que... Espera. My parents don't think that you're with me right now for money. To not work out. They would like for me to have some type of protection in place to not let this, to not let our finances be split unfairly.
To be honest with you, let's just put all that to the side for a second. Because to be honest with you, even if Chantel had been completely honest at the very beginning, the prenup would have still happened. I believe that her parents would have still asked for the prenup. Purely because he's coming in from another country without a job. He's coming in without no assets. He's coming in without providing a single dime. And they know that the fact that he's going to be living off of her money and probably their money too, because they know that she won't be able to afford, everything by herself with him. So they'll probably be there to give her some sort of financial support anyway, because they are going to be her security net. So to be honest, like, instead of focusing this on the situation itself in particular, this was always the inevitable. The only difference though would have been that if Chantel didn't lie, when the parents would have proposed the idea of the prenup, it would have been a more healthy conversation, because in that conversation, it wouldn't necessarily be about trust. It would be about something else. Because at that point, there would have been a relationship that had already been built between Pedro and the family anyway. So therefore, when that relationship would have been built, it means that having the conversation prenup would have been a bit more easier to do and a bit more relaxed. But because it's based on a lie, Pedro is frustrated about this situation because the family wants a prenup because the family doesn't trust him, but he's annoyed because he wasn't even given a chance to even gain their trust because of this ridiculous lie. Which of course is still, which he still has a part to blame in it. I mean, look at it this way, right? If you tell a lie, and then a prenup is a part of the conversation, it's not going to be a good conversation. If everything is based on the truth and no lies, and then you bring up a prenup, the conversation is more likely to go in a more sensible way. So that's why we've got to navigate how we go about things in life, especially with our relations with people, especially when we decide that we want to marry that person.
Lo paso a mi madre, aunque sean malos, aunque sean buenos. Pero si me quiero casarme con Chantal, entonces I need prenup right now, because yo estoy aquí para casarme con ella.
Well, I guess marrying Chantel was more important than getting the prenup. I guess at this moment in time, that's when people can guess and wonder, did he want to still continue the marriage because he just truly did love her and he wanted to be with her? Or is it because he knew that at least if he gets the papers, at least he'll be able to stay there anyway regardless? I guess that's always been the question between people. But I would say based on this very first ever season, this man simply just wanted to marry her because he genuinely did have feelings for her. Sadly, she just made everything more challenging than what it should have been.
Just like you said.
You mentioned it.
Oh. Did you guys get the prenuptial agreement?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to see it.
Maybe only for prenup? No like it for wedding? No happy for wedding?
So inheritance, is it listed?
You can look at
In
everything
addition
you
to
want.
which everybody shall. Let's see here.
I mean, imagine that the family finally turns up to the wedding and all they want to know about is the prenup. I would feel like absolute shit. I doubt I'd even go through the wedding, to be honest with you. I don't think I would even get this far. Because why lie in the first place, eh? Well, that is pretty much exactly everything that happened in the very first season of Pedro and Chantel, okay? Now, of course, if you'd like a part 2 where we now crack down everything that happened within the spin-off series of the family Chantel that happened after they appeared on season 4 of 90 Day Fiance, then, well, I only asked for one simple thing. Simple thing, okay? I believe that if we can get at least 500 likes, 500 likes for this video right in particular, then 1000% we can do another video regarding the family Chantel and see exactly what other things went down that really tore this relationship apart. But as of right now, Chantel was the source of all the problems, pretty much in this very first time of seeing them on 90 Day Fiance. But hey, if you got other views, let me know in the comment section. Like I said before, if you want a part 2, give me that 500 likes, please, and also subscribe. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.